Education Over That podcast. I'm Sheena Hogan. I'm so glad you joined. This is a place where I give practical financial tips that anyone can understand and you can begin to implement now. Season 2 is all about relationships and money. Each week, I will have a guest come onto the show and they will share with you their journey. My hope is that you will leave this conversation with a new perspective, tip, or strategy that you can implement now to live the life that you want to live financially. The Education Over That podcast is now streaming on Spotify, so be sure to check us out there and become a monthly supporter for as little as 99 cents per month. And if you haven't checked out the website, educationoverdebt.com, go check us out and learn more about what we're doing in the community and the foundation. The purpose of the foundation is to provide scholarship money to students obtaining their bachelor's degree. Today's topic is understanding our personal relationship with money. Our guest is Ms. Jennifer Rountree. Jennifer was born and raised in the Washington, D.C. area. She graduated from Elon University in North Carolina with a degree in business finance and management. She began her career as a financial advisor and later transitioned to the human resources professional, where she has worked for over 10 years in U.S. government. Jennifer volunteers at her church, facilitating and coaching financial literacy connect groups. In her spare time, she enjoys spending time with family, sightseeing in DC, traveling, and trying new cuisines. Please help me welcome to the show, Jennifer Rountree. Hi, Jennifer. How are you doing today?
Hey, Sheena. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'd like to give my guests a little bit of background of how we and you met. And so me and Jennifer met at church, the First Baptist Church in Glenarden in Maryland. And we were both in the Queen Esther discipleship program, and we were accountability partners. And ever since then, that was almost probably like 10 years ago now that I think about it. It was a long time ago. I lived in Chicago for 7 years. So it was probably about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we've stayed in contact ever since then. So she's been a great friend of mine. She's really good with financial literacy and coaching. And I wanted her to have her on the show today so she could teach us about, what are some common trends that she sees with money and how she has grown in her personal development with her personal finances. Thank you, Jennifer, for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to jump right in. Jennifer, help me understand or share with me your money story.
So my money story, as a child, I grew up in a single parent household. My mom didn't have much, but she had a great village. So we always had something. Like we never went without. We were never in need. That was never an issue for us. But, I lived in a family that you got money, so you spend it all. That's what you're supposed to do. So savings was never something that was instilled in me. Investments, kind of making your money work for you is something that I never learned. And it wasn't until I got to college, I started a job, and there was this lady there, and she did financial coaching. And so that's how I learned about, really the ins and outs of money. Because for me, it was just pay your bills on time and you're good. As long as you have a good credit score, you can get as many credit cards as you want. And, So when I met her, she kind of walked me through what investments were, what savings are, and she challenged me to be debt free. So for me, debt wasn't bad as long as you were paying your bills. But, she talked about, just the freedom of not having to pay bills and not having to owe people for things that you've owned for 20 years or something like that, just making it a point to get things paid off. And so she gave me a lot of books to read, and she would give me like assignments and stuff. She loved it. And that's how I learned about it. And I wish I had known it before, but learning in a college age, right when I'm getting out, that kind of worked in my favor for a lot of things, but it helped me to instill things in myself financially early on, whereas later on down the line, it kind of came in handy.
Okay, well, that's good to hear that you actually had a mentor or a financial coach yourself in college that really helped you along the way. So then how did you end up becoming a financial literacy coach, or when did you become a financial literacy coach?
So it started, so I wanted to be a financial advisor. That was always my thing. But financial advising usually is, trying to advise you on investments and insurances and that kind of a thing. So that was never what I wanted to do. That was never my intention to advise people on, oh, these are your investments. No, I want to teach you how to work with your everyday money. That was always my big thing. So at First Baptist Church of Glenarden, they had a group called Prosperity Partners. And I joined that. And that allowed you to, get with people who had that same, I want to get out of debt. I want to, learn about my money. I want to be more intentional about how I spend my money. And that's where it all started for me. and Prosperity Partners. And then as time went on, I just, would do it on the side personally with people. The church I attend now, we use Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. So that's something that we kind of walk people through. And I enjoy it because it's so simple. And a lot of people think it's this big complicated, I have to have A, B, C, D, E, F, G to get it done. And no, you just need A. That's all.
Well, that's good. You say you didn't want to work with people in their everyday money. I actually wanted, and you didn't want to work with investments. I'm sorry, you wanted to work with people in their everyday money.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, it was actually the opposite. I wanted to work with the investments and not work with the everyday money. So I felt like, because my mom taught me so much about managing money, just the basics of paying your bills on time. And, she said if you had good credit, then you could do anything in life. Good credit and good background check. That's what she used to say. As long as you keep your credit good and your background check, you good. Like, that's like motto.
That's right. Oh, as long as your credit's good, you're fine.
Yeah. And so I wanted to learn more about the investment side and really how to accumulate wealth. So that was my thing to get into the financial service industries. Another thing you did mention was the sales part of financial services. So yeah, it is about investment and insurance, but they also talk to you a lot about sales and meeting quotas, and that's another burden too on top of it. So you mentioned though you worked at with Prosperity Partners at First Baptist, and I think you got me into Prosperity Partners probably. Now that I think about it, probably so. I know I was looking into it myself. So you have to serve as a junior, then you become a senior, and so I don't know. We probably did it around the same time, but I know you were doing it when I was doing it. So at your new church, you do the Dave Ramsey program. How is that as far as meeting with people and going over getting out of debt and things like that?
I think that it's easier because he has like a step-by-step plan. So it's easier to walk through because there's already literature out there for you. There's already things to walk through with what he gives. So there's videos and everything that you can walk through. His website has a lot of things for people to use. So it makes it easier on the facilitator, but at the same time, people need that hand holding sometimes. They need a practical bit of advice. Like, what did you do? How did it go for you? How did you pay off student loans? How did you pay off your debt? So when you have someone there who you know and can tangibly touch, who's done these things, it makes you feel more hopeful that it's possible than just to see people on TV saying, "Yeah, I did this and we, paid off $200,000." No, when you have someone in your face, it's like, "Oh, you look like me, and I know you. I know how you live your life. I know what's going on behind your closed doors." And you see them being able to reach that goal, a goal that you're looking to reach. I think that's the biggest piece of what helps people.
Do you find it challenging for people to sign up for Dave Ramsey? Sometimes it's like going to the doctor or going to the counselor. Like, something may be wrong, but just taking that step to actually sign up and go could be a challenge. Do people have that challenge with you guys?
I think so. So with it, if there is a cost with it, and a lot of people, they get in their mind, I want to join, and then they see the cost and like, oh, I don't want it that bad. And so, with anything that you want, there's going to be an investment of your time, an investment of your money, what have you. And he has a book out called The Total Money Makeover that kind of goes through a lot of the principles that financial peace does. So it's helpful there because I always tell people, just go get the book. At least you'll know the steps to go through, and that'll get you started. But the commitment piece, once people see what work goes into it and what you need to get to that debt free place, to that place where people are, I did my debt free scream, like even in Prosperity Partners with Michelle Singletary, she was telling people, well, you need to move in with your mama because you can't afford this, or you need to get a roommate because you can't afford this. And that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to sacrificing, and people kind of miss that part. They don't want that part.
Yeah. Is he as extreme as Michelle? Sometimes I feel like Michelle goes so hard, and she's very passionate about it too. Is he like as extreme, like, or is he not? Is he a little bit lenient, or how is it?
He's not lenient because I think there's one thing that he says, like, if you have debt, we shouldn't see you in a restaurant or something like that. So it's like, oh, cut everything out. Don't live your life. Go pay off all your debt, then you can live again. And I think that's almost as extreme as Michelle Secretary, because I remember one time she said that her family wanted a DVD player, and she was like, "Well, what's wrong with what we have now? All we have is VHS cassettes anyway, so we can watch these VHS cassettes. We don't need this DVD player now." So I mean, that extreme.
Oh yeah, that is extreme. Now, does when you work with the people though, do you kind of share with them like how to keep it in perspective and balancing out, even when they start teaching their kids about money? Do you see some of that, or do you all like? I know Michelle had us look at that Shopaholic movie one year,
Oh, that was good.
and I thought it was a really good movie to actually show like sometimes if you're too extreme, kids go completely opposite. So like maintaining that balance. Do you all like talk through that with your clients?
We don't talk through it in the Financial Peace University, but it's something that I like to push because I know when I paid off debt, for me, it's all this gung ho. You have to pay off debt, but I remember when I paid off a big chunk of something, and I was like, well, I just need to do one thing for myself, and I ran my credit card up like $1,000. And it was only because I wasn't celebrating the small wins. And so when something came up, it was like, oh, I'm not buying anything for myself. I can't do anything. And I paid my debt off over 7 years. So because it took so long, it's just like, oh, well, I've never done anything for myself. I should do something for myself. And I just went crazy with it. So making sure that you have that balance is as you're going through things, it's okay to, okay, we're going to eat out once a month or something like that, to give yourself that grace. And if you fall off the wagon, get back up and get on it. It's not the end of the world. I think that's a bigger thing. People are like, I can't do it, or I did it and then it messed up here and they want to quit. So it's like, no, don't quit. Just keep going. It happens. It happens to the best of us. Keep going.
Right. Right. And showing people how to be flexible. I don't know why with money, for some reason, people feel like it's the end all be all, even with creating a budget. Like some people are like, oh, you got to create a budget at the beginning of the year for the whole year. Or they think that. And I'm like, I don't
Oh.
know where, how can you do that? Or they think like, oh, even a monthly budget for me personally, I don't even do a monthly. I do like every 2 weeks,
Mhm.
when I get paid. And the only reason is because I have certain things coming out of certain paychecks. And then also because I work commission for such a long time, it just worked better for me. Do you see people getting stuck with the budget piece or creating a spending plan and really setting their mindset around it and sticking to it?
Yeah, so a lot of people have, well, not a lot of people, but I see some people have issues with the budget because it forces you to put it on paper. So some people don't want to see that, oh, I don't have enough money to cover my monthly bills, and they're scared to see that. So they won't write it down. They don't want, no, I don't want to write the plan. And then there are other people that, oh, I can't write this down because then I have to stick to it. No, it doesn't. It's flexibility in your budget. And if you know that you want, like you eat ice cream, you love ice cream, okay, put that $10 a week that you put towards ice cream in your budget so that you can plan for it. But I think a lot of people either don't do the budget because they're scared it's going to lock them into something and they're not going to be able to commit, or that it's going to tell them, what you already know for the most part. If you're not making ends meet, if you have a surplus, but it kind of forces you to look at where you are. And that's what a big part of what everyone says. Start with where you are. You can't go nowhere until you know where you are. So if you're here, how do you get to the goals that you want? And that's what
Right.
it does. It just lays out how to get to that place, or your plan of how you're going to get to that place. Like you talked about doing a 2 week budget. I do mine. So I have a monthly budget that I have, but then when I get paid, I will look at what's in my bank account to kind of lay it out to make sure it goes along with what my monthly budget is.
Yeah, yeah, I do the same thing. So I make sure, like, I used to be an auditor, so I make sure I tie the balances. I was just doing that today. Like, what is going on? I feel like I'm off $26. Like, where's this $26? So yeah, I do the same thing. I tie it to make sure it ties with what's in the account, and I also round up to a dollar. I know some people do it down to the penny, but in past experience, when I first started, I would overdraft by like 2 cents or little pennies, and I was like, oh, that's the end of that. So I always just do a round up to a dollar. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
follow you well, and I also find that if you do, so I have separate accounts for things.
Mhm.
So I know when I go out and hang out, this is the account for going out and hanging out. This is the only debit card I can use for going out and hanging out. For my bills that I pay at home, okay, this is the account for those specific things. Any bills that I pay, it has to come out of this one. So I make sure that certain amounts go to certain places so that I'm not spending all the money to take care of my mortgage, take care of my car, and all that stuff when I'm going out anywhere. So if I do go overboard, there's some cushion there for that.
That's good. That's good that you talked about separate accounts. Have you seen a lot of people start to open up separate accounts now since we have more online banking options and flexibility there? Do you encourage people to even consider online banking for savings and stuff like that?
Yes. So with online banking, I usually encourage people to use it because they have higher interest rates when it comes to savings. And you want your money to be liquid. Like if it's you're saving for, I need to get an oil change in 2 months or something like that. That money needs to stay liquid. You don't need to put that in the stock market. So for those kinds of things, I would say put that in a high yield savings account, which right now they're not very high, or as high as we've been seeing them lately. But when you put your stuff in a high yield savings account, you're at least making money on it. You want your money to make money. You don't want money to just sit. So if you know that you have money that's going to be sitting for a while, but you're going to use it for a purpose within that year, then you should probably put it in a high yield savings account.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that too. I totally agree with the online savings account. And so even just for starting to save, because I found that people, it's like they can have $10, but like as soon as they save $10, they find a reason to spend $5 or something. It's like as soon as it's there, it's oh I gotta, I forgot to eat this week, or I forgot, I need to go get my tires flat or whatever. It's always like something comes up as soon as like $10 or anything hit that account. So the online savings account makes you think more, is this a need or a want? Because it's gonna take another 2 to 3 days before it come back to you. So like,
Yeah.
do you really need this money, or what else can we do to try to better prepare for next time if this happens again?
Mm-hmm.
So totally encourage people to do the online savings account. I'm a big fan of online savings. That's how I kind of saved for when I was going to school, kind of kept my student loan debt low, was because I had an online savings account. I would put the refund check in the online savings account to next semester so I could grow a little interest on it. And at that time, the interest rates were like 4.7. And so, yeah, it did pretty good. So I encourage online savings account. So I'm glad that you share with people those strategies. Any other common trends that you see with people when you're talking to them about money? Any other challenges that you see often, what they're afraid of?
Money is a brain thing. So I have seen people making six figures, more than enough money, and have no money at the end of the month. I have seen people living making $15 an hour, and they're like living the best life. So it's crazy. It's just in your mind. It's how you think about things, how you relate to things, and sometimes it's just how we grew up that make us think certain ways. So I remember I had a client when I was a financial advisor, and he told me they had 5 cars. It was two of them, and they had a daughter who could not drive. So the man, he was like, "Oh well, I my wife's father has a Mercedes, so I need to, have a Mercedes too because I want her to still be able to live the life that she would have lived with her family." And I was like, but you got 5 cars, and you are, you got all this debt. You're trying to figure out where to cut money. You don't need 5 cars. But that was what was instilled in him, like, I have to give you this specific life. So a lot of it is just a mindset. I've been with people who were like, I deserve this and I shouldn't have to pay for it, pay this much money. I shouldn't have to pay that back. I shouldn't be working like this, and because I make this money, this isn't fair to me. And so a lot of what I see is just people not willing to put in the work, or they don't know what it is. I always tell people, you either have to increase your income or decrease your finances, decrease your expenditures. That's the only way. No other way.
Right.
Increase your income or decrease your expenditures. And so, when you tell people that up front, like you have to make a move. I remember going back and forth with a woman. She's like, well, I have to spend gas to go here and I have to do this. Like, you have to figure out what sacrifice needs to be made. And ultimately, that's what happens when you're trying to pay off debt. When you're saving, like you think, oh, in the back of your mind, but I want to spend this money. I could buy this new pair of shoes. Oh, but I also want to go to Hawaii. So let me put this in a savings account for that, as opposed to getting those new shoes. Or I want to be able to pay for something down the line. So let me put that money away now versus spending it. Oh, I'm going out shopping. I want to go, out with my friends, what have you. So it's
Right.
a sacrifice either way. And you have to put in your mind what your priorities are. If your priorities are, I want to live my best life and I'll die and leave behind all this debt, great. But if you want to leave something behind for people, if you want to live comfortably, because it's very, very stressful to live when you don't know what's going to happen. I remember I work in the government. When they were talking about shutting the government down, a lot of people get furloughed, and there were so many people that had issues. They're like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm like, one paycheck, you don't know what you're going to do. That's the stressful place to live in, when the loss of one check is going to wipe out your whole finances. So just making plans for that to give you that peace of, okay, it's okay, fine, we can shut down for 3 months, I'm good, and that's kind of where you want to be. So putting yourself in a position where you can set your life up like that, where you're living in peace and you're not wondering where the next dollar is coming from, is a peaceful thing.
Yeah, that's good. And I think even because like 2020, we had the COVID even going now into 2021. I think now if people didn't do it last year, I think this year they should consider focusing on or really drilling down on getting their finances in order. So if they do have some debt, maybe now would be a great time to pay off the debt if they have a job or if they're working. Maybe now, I mean, you can't go out as much, you can't travel as much, we're not eating out as much, you're not driving to work as much or riding the train as much, or if you do, they have reduced parking because we ain't supposed to be really in the office. So now it's like now would be a great time to really try to pay off debt or to really try to save because we're not doing as much as we're used to doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think now is like the opportune time. Like, why not do it now? Now is the greatest time, you know? Now is the time.
Yeah, it's a lot of downside. I found that I saved a lot of money. I used to go to work every day, and we've been working from home since March of last year. And so the money that I've saved just from not having to pay for parking,
Mm-hmm.
from not having to buy gas every week, like I was used to, I'm not having to buy pantyhose. I wear pajamas to work.
Right.
So just the savings from those expenses is very helpful. But even with that, be intentional. Okay, normally I would spend this on going out to lunch. I don't have to go out to lunch. I can cook now. I'm in the house, and I should be in the house because I ain't trying to catch COVID. So so
Yeah.
putting yourself on the spot to make sure you're doing those things.
Right. I think that's key. In Chicago, we had like $1 a day parking. So if you did have to go into the office, it was only $1 a day. Like our mail team had to go into the office to still manage the mail. We could pretty much stay out of the office, but at one point they was talking about transitioning, like 10 people go in on Monday or this week, and then next week another 10, all this stuff. And so that was like one of the things. And so I was like, oh, okay. But then of course they shut all that down. Nobody's going nowhere. So it is a way to really save. And even now working from home, I, try to meal prep a little bit more because I realized that I was eating a lot when COVID first started. So we had to find some ways to cut back on eating. And so now I actually bought these wraps that I'm going to try to do this week and just trying to really be almost like intentional about what I'm eating, being intentional about spending money. Like if I go to the grocery store, how often am I going to the grocery store? What type of foods am I getting? Am I getting enough that's going to last me for the week that I could do meal prep for? Even at home, quick meals that I could cook real quick on my lunch break, things like that. And it's one way to help save money. So just being intentional and being a better planner. So with that being said, 2021, what are you looking for this year for yourself?
For myself, well, so I have never been an avid investor. I've always been like a super saver, put it in a savings account. So I started a little last year. I opened up an investment account to start investing in stocks, but I want to take a bigger leap into my investments, just like in the stock market, doing some mutual funds, and I also want to beef up my retirement savings so that I could take advantage of a lot of the perks that they're giving. My company does match, so I've only done it up to the match. But I'm like, oh, I could do more. I could take part in a Roth IRA. So there's a couple of things that I have been looking at to get invested in.
Are you afraid of investments at all? Like, does anything strike you as a fear? In our community, usually we just know about the market tanking. We don't know about the good side, right? So
Yeah.
is there any fears for you in investing?
So for the longest, I was afraid to invest in stocks because you could be at a high $1,000 today, and then they say somebody did something crazy in the company, and it's worth 25 cents. So that was always a big fear of mine. So when it comes to investing in the stock market, I usually will put money in there that I can afford to lose, and it won't hurt me too bad. But otherwise, I'll like try a mutual fund or something like that. And it's good because there's so many resources out there. Even if you feel like you don't trust people, there are books you can read. There newspapers and online resources that you can read that kind of walk you through how to make choices, and when to know to invest, when to know to invest in something versus not. When the market crashes, that's a great time for me. That worked out well in my favor because that was right around the time I came out of college. So when I invested my money for my 401k, it was, everything was so low. So now it's like thriving because it's just, back up to more than what it was when I came out of college. So it makes you fearful because you can lose things. I think that was always my biggest fear, but I invested last year and I think almost doubled what I invested. So it's just like, oh, well, you can also gain too, and you see the upside of things. It makes you more eager to want to try.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing for investing is really just thinking about when do I plan to use the money. Like my win is more important to me, almost more important than the stock itself. Because if I feel like I'm not going to use it until another 5 years or 10 years or like retirement, I can go all in. But so that's a big thing for me. And then also mutual funds, I found just don't have as much fluctuations just because, it's so many different stocks in the mutual fund. So that's another way for me to feel like I'm diversified. So if the market does tank, I'm not going to have a huge tank because it's spread across 10 or 20 companies. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that diversification has helped me to keep even level or a more steady, rate of return with not a lot of fluctuations. Well, is there anything that you're looking forward to working with people for this year with the Financial Peace University?
So I am working with a couple of groups this year. I am kind of on the fence about whether I'm going to facilitate. I am doing some coaching with people who are planning to facilitate, just to kind of walk them through. So we want to make sure that we have people, as people go through, go back and grab other people with you. So we're trying to make sure that happens. I've decided to start school. So with that, I don't want too many things on my plate, but I enjoy it. I just love talking people through. So I mean, if they have like questions or something like that, I always help. And I think last year I did like a co-facilitation with someone, so it wasn't as much work. So I may do something like that again, but I always try to make myself available if they need people at church, because I think it's a big deal. It's so simple. It's not even a big. That's one of the biggest reasons I want to get. It's just simple. You think you have to do all this huge work, and you don't.
Right. And I think too now with you being able to systematically set up things like the automated payments for bills and even savings, I think it make it even easier. I wish it was a program like that for working out where I could just systematically have something automatically work my legs or something like.
Yes.
But it's not. I feel like working out requires way more work than just, saving a few dollars or paying bills on time. Like with this electronic, technology, you could just set it up and be done with it. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that you are still looking to work with people this year, even if it's as a co-facilitator. What are you going back to school for?
I'm getting my master's in accounting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
finance field, and I wanted to always be in the finance field. HR is great, but I cannot divorce numbers. I love it so much.
Really? Okay, okay. So you're going back over into accounting and back over to the financial side. Okay. Well, I, was an undergrad accounting major and I got my MBA with finance. So totally commend you for doing that. And good luck with you on your journey in your schooling with education. So these are rapid fire questions. This is about 5 questions that I ask people. Some of them are fun. And really, I just want to hear the first thing that comes to mind. So are you ready?
All right.
All right. Paper or plastic?
Paper.
If your life was a movie, what genre would it be?
A comedy.
Okay. Um, one piece of advice that you think everybody should know or that we should completely disregard.
Um, know your stuff. Read your stuff. I think that everyone should know to read your own stuff. Know your own stuff.
Okay. How would you define success?
Um, Success is walking along the path that you planned for yourself. To be able to walk along there and be resilient to any failures that may come about. To continue to keep your eye on the goal and go without quitting.
Oh, wow. That's great. And then in 3 words or less, how would you describe yourself?
Funny, thoughtful, and respectful.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today. How can people get in contact with you?
Oh, you can email me. My email is jcroundtree@gmail.com. That's jcroundtree tree@gmail.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us for the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
All right. Talk with you soon.
All right.
Wow, that was amazing. Jennifer shared with us so many tips. She talked to us about how easy it is to really start managing money and that it's really all in your head. So what are some of those thoughts that you have regarding money? What are some of the things that you maybe learned from a child or something that you're trying to do now to keep up with other people or to show a certain perception or facade to others that may not be the best thing for you? She taught us about the importance of knowing yourself and understanding your own money story. But then she also taught us about now in 2021, now may be a great time for you to work on getting your financial situation together. I mean, we are not spending as much money. We're in the house more. So now may be a great time for you to look into how can you pay off debt? How can you start to save? What are some things that you've cut back? And then how can they help you to achieve your financial goals? We thank our guest, Jennifer Rountree, for joining us today in this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to the Education Over Debt podcast. Look us up on Spotify and share with your friends. And if you haven't already, please check out our website at educationoverdebt.com to learn more about what we're doing in the community and how you can help the foundation continue to help students go to college. I am Sheena Hogue. Remember to live life, love life, and be well.